Life can be chaotic, it can be difficult, it can be so crazy. We can find ourselves on top of the world one moment and the next moment feeling like we're drowning. And I often will look at one particular story that I love in scripture because it's so relatable. Every time I read it, I'm like, yeah, that's me. I do that all the time. And I'm referring to what we see in Matthew 14. If you go to Matthew 14, it's one of the coolest chapters because it shows Jesus walking on water, right? Something that no human can do, but of course, Jesus, being God, is able to do it. And so you see, he sends the disciples to get in the boat and go ahead of him on the other side of the water. And he goes and dismisses and deals with the crowd. And, after that, later that night, we see that the boat is far from the land, right? They've listened to him, they've gone on the boat, and there are waves and there's wind and the boat's moving around. And then Jesus goes out to them, which I think is such a fascinating line in verse 25, walking on the lake. So he's walking on the water. And of course, the disciples see him and they're terrified. They're like, oh my gosh, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. And they're crying out in fear. And Jesus is like, guys, take courage. It's me. Don't be afraid. Calm down. And then Peter says something really, really interesting. He's like, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. Right. And so Jesus is like, come on, like, come to me. And so Peter gets down out of the boat. He starts walking on the water and he comes toward Jesus. I mean, you try to picture what this must have been like, right? But all of a sudden, he sees Jesus. Jesus is right there. He's seen Jesus do all these incredible things. And Jesus is clearly walking on the water, right? He's making his way over to him. Now he's able to walk on the water. So you would think, like, we're good here. We know that something supernatural, miraculous, and amazing is happening. But he sees the wind, he gets distracted, and he becomes afraid, and he starts to sink. And he cries out, Lord, save me. And I'm like, what a relatable moment, because all of us have these times in our lives where we know Jesus has been good. We know that God has done incredible things for us. We know what is possible when we believe and trust in him and what he can do. We see it in scripture, we see it in our own lives, and somehow we forget. We get distracted. The wind in our lives takes us away and we start to sink. We start to sink into hopelessness, despair. We start to sink into the chaos around us and we find ourselves screaming out, Lord, save me. And what is so cool in verse 31 is that immediately it says Jesus reaches out his hand and he caught him. You of little faith, Jesus said, why did you doubt? And it's such a convicting line because all the time I'm doubting whether I've gotten myself into a bad situation or somebody else has done something that's gotten me into a difficult spot or I'm just struggling. We find ourselves doubting and having little faith. And when they climbed into the boat, it tells us the wind died down. And so a lot of times the chaos is not going to die down. It's going to continue. But how do we deal with it? How do we navigate it? We turn to him. And what I love in verse 33 is then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. And that's what we have to remember, that truly he is the Son of God. When life gets chaotic, that we do not need to sink down in fear. We need to cling to him. And we're feeling that chaos right now in the news, in the world around us. There's nothing new under the sun, but man, is the chaos intensifying in terms of the information we have and the access to that chaos. And we see it and we feel it, and we can start to sink if we're not careful. So let's turn to him. Remember that lesson. Don't forget the times that he's been faithful in your life, that he has guided you and sustained you, because that is what helps us journey through those difficult moments.